Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to have been invited to speak at this conference and talk about AI in society and how AI, despite being a powerful tool that can bridge equality gaps, has been widening them in the past few years. So, my name is Ndiaye. I'm a developer at a company called Sama, which is a training data provider, and I'm also the city lead for Montreal for Women in AI. So today I'm just going to talk about how AI can solve some equality gaps in various ways, including creating a more accessible world and mitigating food waste or creating a more efficient healthcare system. Yeah. So the current, I'll also mention how, what are the current problems with AI applications and how they are mostly beneficial to companies that are already very profitable and powerful. And gonna mention some of the potential fixes we have to handle those issues. Some of them are already, well, all of them are essentially being applied, but we need a wider adoption of these fixes, and they include encouraging more transparency and more implementation of ethical AI as industry standards, more policy making around AI, as well as an effort to have more diversity and inclusions in the STEM fields as well as in the world of policy making. And lastly, how raising public awareness and literacy about AI is key. Okay, so just to start, how has AI been helping with our equality issues as a global problem? So we can look at the agricultural sector, for example. It's not really a secret that a lot of food is wasted to lack of optimizations or lack of means to actually optimize the process, and AI has been used to increase food production and lower resource waste in various of ways, and they include sorting, for example, rotten fruits out of batches, or adjusting the amount of water that is used in order to feed the plant's needs, or automating the harvest process. And yeah, all of that can be done with AI and with well, achieving food security and promoting sustainable agriculture. Or basically, well, AI is helping us achieve that in a sustainable way. So yeah, you can see clearly the advantages of AI in that field, and there are many other ways that AI is bridging equality gaps. For example, if you look at the advances in computer visions and deep learning or robotics, those are slowly removing the accessibility barriers, and not just for people with physical disabilities, for example, people with visual or hearing impairments. So something like real-time translations are removing the language barriers and enabling communications between people who speak different languages. So that's just like a way you can make the world more accessible and removing some barriers, and essentially just giving more people the chance to actually overcome some barriers that they might not have any control on. And these are just, yeah, I mean, there are two examples with agriculture and with accessibility, but in many different sectors, AI has been known to bridge the equality gaps. So I guess the question really is, despite all this, why do we have a lot of headlines that say things along the line about how AI is dangerous, how the future with AI is a bit unsure, and essentially how AI could be a bad thing and is just leading to more inequality in the world? And just to start, I don't believe that AI is dangerous. AI is just a tool like any other. The danger is in how people are using it. And right now, the people who have the means to develop AI models are powerful private institutions and research centers usually. There are others, but I just mean like the big leaders right now. So universities and all, or private big tech companies. And due to that, most of the advances are essentially just being applied to encourage consumption And the others, so the research development, a lot of it is just theoretical. So what we're seeing is that only big tech companies have been greatly benefiting from AI. And as much as AI is augmenting the quality of life for many, wealth generated by AI is not distributed equitably. Big tech companies are currently not really being regulated enough, and as a result, jobs, for example, are being replaced by automation. So that means that essentially those companies are able to do what they've been doing this whole time, but without actually paying for the labor. And if we look at our personal data, which is essentially being used for profit now, and I mean, the phenomenon is called surveillance capitalism, and essentially it's an infringement of our human rights to privacy. And things like this are essentially just inevitable with the way things are evolving with AI. And there's also the whole issue and topic of AI biases and how AI models can make discriminatory estimations. So if AI is just as strong as the data we feed it. If we're feeding it discriminatory data, it's gonna give essentially discriminatory results. So that's why the topic of AI biases is is also very valid, and how it's essentially just pushing towards more inequalities and preserving some unfair systems that are already in place. And with all of this, the competitive advantage that some of these big tech companies have are really making it harder for smaller companies or competitors that might have more ethical applications they want to put in place. Like it's making it just hard for them to just even enter those markets. And yeah, this abuse of power and resources are enabled by a lack of repercussions for these companies. And it's just going to perpetuate the wealth inequality, and it could be slowed down with policy making around AI and its applications, similarly to how we have policies that prevent companies from dumping toxic waste in water. But there should be more policies preventing non-ethical use of AI, which we're slowly starting to see. And it's in order to actually be able to get policies as such, we need 3 different keys, which I brought up at the beginning. So essentially raising public awareness about AI and its applications. So I believe this is a key element in order to getting positive change in AI's impact, as the public is directly impacted by it. Policymakers also need some understanding of AI in order to better be armed to deal with the increasing adoption of AI and respond to this urgent need that we have to for regulations around AI. Also, creating new standards of transparency will help greatly in order to create those policies. And on the bright side, this is becoming a lot more standard thanks to the rise in popularity in responsible investing, which itself is slowly becoming a standard in the world of investments. And this is pushing more companies to disclose information about their societal impact, and it really helps decision makers with their understanding of an AI company's impact, and I guess a general idea of what which ways AI companies can actually impact the society. Yeah. Finally, there's also a strong need for more diversity and inclusion in both AI companies and within the world of decision makers. Since AI will affect different groups of the populations in different unjust ways, including people from different backgrounds, whether it's cultural, ethnic, professional, or social, or economical, it is essential to make inclusive regulations and not overlook the struggles faced by the specific portions of the population. Inviting marginalized communities to join the decision making process allows for more chances to actually give everyone a voice and basically get the protection that they deserve. It does sound like it's a lot of work, but and it's true that a lot still needs to be done, but on the bright side, a lot of organizations are really working actively towards this, whether it's with some for-profit AI companies that are actively trying to reverse the equality gap through social innovation or ethical implementation or AI, or if it's from non-for-profits like NGOs like CFAR, for example. CFAR is a research group and like a research organization, I should say, that's working on an AI toolkit that can help policymakers better understand AI. They call it the AI policy. Oh, sorry. AI Futures Policy Labs, and it contains a series of workshops explaining what AI is and isn't and where it is taking us, essentially. There's still a lot of work to do, but at least it's great to see that discussions are being held and that concrete efforts are being made, kind of like the ones that we have in this conference. So yeah, I'm really happy to see more beautiful initiatives stems from this conference, and I'm really hoping to actually be able to participate in some of these discussions. It was a pleasure to present today. I'm wishing you all the best. Bye.